Thank you, sir. Good evening. Welcome to City Council meeting tonight. We're going to open with a public hearing first. The public hearing pursuant to Elkins City Code 158.068 regarding the proposed zoning of an unzoned parcel in Elkins Corporation, Tax District Tax Map 17, Parcel 258. Is there anyone here for public comment? If not, we will call the hearing closed. Okay, we're going to start now with the invocation, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would, please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all the blessings you have given us. We thank you for providing us the opportunity to serve the citizens of Elkins. We ask that you guide us in our decision-making as we strive to help our community grow. We also ask that you watch over and guide our country's leaders. In Jesus' name, amen. I will officially call the council meeting to order and ask our city clerk to take a roll, please.
Councilor Bross-Friganera.
Here.
Councilor Carroll.
Here.
Councilor Chenoweth. Here. Councilor Hinchman. Here. Councilor Kearns.
Here.
Councilor Lowther.
Here.
Councilor Parker.
Here.
Councilor Pliszka. Councilor Severino.
Here.
Councilor Thompson.
Here.
10 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here for public comment tonight? If not, we will move down to the minutes portion, and I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as submitted for the May 2nd, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are those opposed, nay? Motion carries, sorry. Correspondence and notifications, you have your building permits, your zoning permits, and your vacant property registrations in your pack. And tonight we have a presentation by Josh, is that Neese, is that correct? From Mon Forest Towns. Welcome, John.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to be here with you this evening. My name is Josh Neese. I've had the honor of serving as the Executive Director of the Mon Forest Towns Partnership for about a year now. And I am the first and only employee of the Mon Forest Towns Partnership, at least for now. I grew up in Harrison County, currently reside in Tucker County, and it's really nice to be here in the largest, by far, Mon Forest town that we have. So I'm here this evening to provide an overview of Mon Forest Towns and a brief update of where we're headed. In the last year that I've been working with the organization, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and most conversations begin with signs. Everyone recognizes the signs in the Black Bear and going into town, and everybody sees the signs and knows it, and that's often the only thing people know. But there's a lot more to the story. There's a lot more that's happened, and a lot of it happened before I got here. And I can't really take credit for all of it, or any of it that happened before I was here, and I wish I could because there's really a lot to cover. So some of you may be more familiar with this than others, but I'll go through kind of the brief history of the work done. Between 2017 and 2020, people from 12 towns in the Mon Forest region came together and found common ground and built consensus around a pathway to make positive change for their communities. 12 people agreeing on something is often difficult these days, let alone 12 towns, 12 town councils agreeing to join the Mon Forest Towns Partnership. They focused on what they have in common and built a really well-aligned coalition that committed to the goal of collaboratively growing a strong, sustainable recreation economy that enhances the quality of life for residents and visitors by providing the best outdoor experience. To assist the towns in facilitating the process and achieving results, the partnership has always included a dedicated group of partners: the Monongahela National Forest, West Virginia University Cooperative Extension, Woodlands Development and Lending, USDA Rural Development, the Regional Planning and Development Councils, the Benham Foundation, and many more. Every time I go through a list, I leave people out, so I should probably stop. And as we continue to grow and gain more momentum, we continue to collaborate with more organizations and governments around the state. And so once the early organizational work was done, the partnership wasted no time in getting to work on their mission. And so in 2021, with support from the Benham Foundation, they formed a grants committee and identified community needs and priorities for each town across the region. And through the process, they were awarded funding to launch a grants coordination program that provided grant writing services to the towns and to the organization. Then Monforest Towns implemented the first USDA Community Facilities Technical Assistance and Training Project that was awarded in West Virginia. And through this project, they cataloged 175 projects and priorities of the towns that they needed assistance with across all the towns, across the region. The Grants Coordination Program has so far directly secured $1.9 million and leveraged $7.4 million for outdoor recreation economy related projects since 2022. And in 2022, 2023, we helped towns and partners develop and submit 18 grants. One of those is the Appalachian Regional Commission Power Grant that funded the East Elkins Area Shared Trails Plan. At the same time, Monforest Towns worked with the West Virginia Community Development Hub and the Northern Brownfields Assistance Center to launch the Downtown Appalachia Revitalizing Recreation Economies, or DARE, as I'll call it from here on out. DARE provided technical assistance and architectural services to building owners for property redevelopment in downtown areas, and they completed projects in every Monforest town. Also during the time, Woodlands Development and Lending worked with Partner Community Capital to launch the Monforest Business Initiative, which has provided free business coaching and other business development and loan resources. So far, they've served 171 businesses and created or retained approximately 350 jobs. So Monforest Towns has already accomplished all this before I started a year ago. So one of the first things I did was travel and talk with people in our towns, talk with elected officials, people involved in recreation economy, recreation stakeholders, business owners, and asked, what's Monforest Towns done for you? How have you seen it impact your community? And how can we best support you going forward? And there were several things that were in common across all the towns. One of those, several things across all the towns. One of those was that each town is unique and has its unique goals and priorities and needs. And all the towns wanted to make sure that while we were working together as a group, each town could still maintain their unique characteristics. There are also a few other things that came up across the board. All towns wanted better connectivity to the national forest and better connectivity to each other. And so, another thing that was common across the board was towns were interested in more communication. So through marketing and collaboration, recognizing the entire Monforest Towns region as a single cohesive destination and a single cohesive tourism product. And so in addition to those two things, another need across the board was capacity. All of our towns are challenged with the capacity to do more. Everyone's busy, everyone has a full plate, and taking on outdoor recreation, economic development is not something anyone has time for, or a lot of time for. And so using those three things, communication, connectivity, and capacity, we packaged those up into a proposal to the Appalachian Regional Commission that we submitted in April to support the further development of our Monforest towns as gateway towns to the Monongahela National Forest. Other work currently includes identifying service gaps, common service gaps across the towns, common needs, and plugging in where we can or helping the towns find another good organization working in the state to plug in and meet that need. Over the next few years, we're committed to expanding our work related to our grants coordination program, to our business development programs, and to promoting sustainable outdoor recreation. As I mentioned, there's a lot of key partners in this, organizations that I certainly couldn't do my work without. Woodlands Development and Lending is the organizational home of Forest Towns and is the fiscal agent of Forest Towns currently. They provide a tremendous level of support for everything that I do and that the organization does. The Forest Service obviously continues to be a quiet leader of the effort. They're not setting the agenda, but supporting the organization and the towns however they can. And then the leadership from the towns, our elected officials, our town representatives, and community volunteers continue to really drive the whole initiative forward. And so, in closing, we're here to support Elkins however we can. We currently work pretty closely with Jessica Sutton in East and Samantha, Pete, and we'll be happy to support your priority projects and needs. Just let us know.
Are there any questions?
Sure. When you are saying, how can we support you in any way you can? I know just anecdotally, our biggest challenge seems to be with grant writing and paying for things that seem like it would be related to promoting our town, like wayfinding signs, those type of things. And I didn't know whether you all are still doing grants, providing funds, or mostly helping folks pursue grants. If you could talk a little bit more about some of the funding gaps that we have as a city in promoting ourselves.
Sure, yeah. Well, I have some good news related to the grants coordination program. We're wrapping up our former grant, which was with Downstream Strategies out of Morgantown. And starting in June, we'll have a grant writer that's been working with Forest Towns for years who will be working specifically on Forest Towns projects. And we have the funding to have her working with the towns and the organization through the end of the year. And if the Appalachian Regional Commission grant we submitted is successful, then we'll have her for another 3+ years. The work that we'll be providing related to grants is helping towns staying on top of what towns' priorities are related to grant funding and projects, and then helping our towns identify funding opportunities as they arise. And then one of the powerful things of having 12 towns work together is we know if 6 towns need the same thing, we can leverage funding that way. And for example, we have 5 towns right now that don't have comprehensive plans. And so we're working together with a funder and submitted a proposal to support the development of comprehensive plans for those 5 towns.
The big list that you had talked about earlier, that you had identified, I think it was about 175 projects that you were undertaking. How does one find out what those projects were? And maybe talk about some of the ways that Elkins specifically benefited by some of those.
Okay, so to be clear, we didn't do 175 projects. That was a comprehensive list of community facilities projects and community recreation-related projects from across all 12 towns. So we helped towns compile and prioritize their lists so that we could apply for USDA community facilities funding and other funding to support that. We're probably due to revisit Elkins' priority projects list. I checked it out before I came down here, and the Elkins Area Shared Trails Plan was one of those that we were able to help with. And the other 2 priority projects on the list are funding the Elkins Streetscapes Plan and the Riverfront or Streetscapes Plan construction, is that right? And the Riverfront Development Plan construction. And so if those are things that our grant coordination support can help with, we'd be glad to. We'd have to know a little bit more about TIF and some other funding strategies and how other monies move, but we'd be happy to help with that. And if it's appropriate at some time to sit down with some folks here and talk about, revisit that priority project list and update it, we'd be happy to do that too.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down to our council reports. We'll start with Councilor Parker.
No report this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Bras-Faganera.
Municipal properties met earlier this week, and we don't put the minutes in our packets anymore of committee meetings. People look it up at their own pleasure. So you can look those up, but some of the items that we talked about were the downtown sidewalks and also some city parking lot issues. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Pliska.
No report.
Thank you. Councilor Hinchman.
Yes, sir. Last Monday, the finance met. We went over the HVAC. We'll be bidding on it tonight. We're looking at the bids, excuse me. And then we had discussions on paving at the Little League Park, and the director is going to get, of the parks, Tom Tazar is going to get some bids for us. And then we had discussions on number 10, adjustment for a budget adjustment. Basically, no new money. They're just moving money around so they can pay a piece of equipment off. And we're growing at 8.5% as the first 10 months, and we've added 81 new businesses.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilor Chenoweth.
Personnel Committee met and discussed and recommended to council what's appearing on the agenda is resolution.
Rob, can you get a bit closer to your mic, please? Sorry.
Sorry. What's appearing on the agenda is resolution 1752 and 1753.
Thank you. Councilor Kearns.
No report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Savarino.
No report.
Thank you. Councilor Lowther.
Rules and Ordinances met last Monday, and out of that came item I in the agenda tonight. And then Parks and Rec met last night, and it was a very short agenda, just approving the budget last night. And that's all I have.
Thanks, sir. Councilor Carroll.
The Planning Commission met last week, and after much discussion, there are a few items that are under new business that we'll talk about at that time.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson.
No report.
Thank you. Okay, moving down to the staff reports, we will start with our Chief Wastewater Operator, Whitney Himes. You and your team had a blast today, didn't you?
Yeah, I found out that middle schoolers can run that camera a lot better than me, so. It has an Xbox controller, and I kept wrecking it, so I'm not good at that. But anyways, since the last time I've been here, wastewater has been super busy. Of course, we attended the middle school career fair today, which was a blast. The guys really enjoyed it, and hope to do it again next year. So we got some plans. I'm getting a bigger bag of candy than Melissa, so we'll draw them that way. But we had a couple of employees advance. Brian Jenkins received his Class 2 wastewater certification, and Tim White passed his Class C wastewater license. We had a couple changes in personnel. We're looking for a couple positions in the collection department and a CSO technician, and I'm working with HR on filling those positions. And at the municipal properties meeting this week, we had the discussion about the 11th Street sewer line location. I believe that's on resolution 1755 in the agenda tonight. So if there's any questions regarding that when we get to it, I'll be here. Feel free to ask. We had an installation of a new piece of equipment on our clarifier. Usually our larger clarifier, we're having to wash once or twice a week. So I contacted a company that installed what they call a werewolf, and it has a brush system on each of our arms that circle around and keep our clarifier clean. We haven't had to wash it for 2 weeks yet, so all the algae and stuff has been removed, and it helps with our violations and in our inspections. So it seems like it's doing a pretty good job. But when they were in here, they did find some issues with our clarifier. We're going to have them come back in. The final drive and things are a little bit out of line, so we're going to have them come back in and tweak that to get it operational again. We had a permit modification to our permit and a compliance inspection from February 15th through the DEP. I received that inspection report and sent the response in today. There's a couple issues that we have to address, but we are on the mends of getting that addressed and taken care of. And we had some discussions about purchasing new rain gauges for our CSOs so I can do an I&I study throughout the city. They're portable rain gauges that go ahead and connect to our current flow meters on our CSOs, so I can move them around the city, get a 3-month rain data, and compare them to how much flow we're getting to certain areas, and hopefully eliminate that stormwater from our sanitary sewer. And I'm also looking into a level alarming system for our CSOs. We are not permitted to have any dry weather discharges from these. So if we have an alarm system, like a telemetry system, that gives us a call and says, hey, you're having a discharge during dry weather, we can be on site immediately. Get that fixed within 15 minutes or so instead of hours. So hopefully that system will help with our inspection reports also. But other than that, I think we're pretty good. Oh, and we're also looking into putting a dump station in a plant. We had a loan reserved from the Phase 1 project, about $123,000. And I've been working with the engineers to get that developed, and I think we're within that range, and hopefully at the next sanitary board meeting, we can present that bid packet.
Whitney, will the I&I gauges help us prioritize whenever Mike stands up his stormwater team? Will that help in any of that area?
It would help identify areas where we're getting a lot of stormwater in, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. That's it. Any questions?
Hey, Whitney, could you, clarification on a couple things. One, what's the dump station? What is that?
A dump station is going to be a permitted site to when our vac truck goes to location and cleans lines or public areas or any place like that. They can come to the station and dump.
Oh, cool.
Right now, we don't have an area to dump that material, and it would be a better location to have that than just keeping it on the truck or whichever.
And then the second question, so CSO, is that combined sewage outflows?
Combined sewer overflows, yep.
And just for folks in general, what's the status of sort of like stormwater and sewage separation in the city right now? How much of the city is separate? How much is together?
The city of Elkins is pretty well, after the 2 phases, we're still around 80-85% combined sewer. We have a lot of process to make, and the EPA is really looking into that too. It's going to take a while. A lot of financial responsibility, and it's going to take at least 12 to 15 years to get all this separated out. It's going to take a while.
How does that compare to other municipalities of this size? Is that a common problem across the state?
Yes, it's a common problem. A lot of facilities have these combined sewer overflows. What my concern is, wet weather we are permitted to discharge. We don't like to see that. We like to be under 4 to 5 a year. We are not. Dry weather is what concerns me, so I'd like to get those to 0 if I can. And this telemetry system that we're going to put in, a lot of them are equipment malfunctions. Floats going bad, pumps going down. That's beyond our control. So if we have something that says, hey, get over here, you got a problem, 15 minutes compared to 24 hours is a big difference in discharges.
Are there any other kind of near-term solutions too along those same lines that would support reaching that goal?
There's a lot of structural changes in the city. We have a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of line construction. Found a line the other day. It's a 30-inch line going into a 15-inch. It's on one of our main discharges. It's an old system, a lot of old clay tile pipe that needs repaired and fixed. Without the financing to replace every single line in the city, it's just going to take some time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Whitney? Thank you. Chief Bennett, who, by the way, does have a birthday coming up on Saturday, for your information.
Good evening, everybody. On the 28th, I found out today that we will be doing our in-vehicle camera installs and radars. Starting that day, it'll take approximately a week to get all of our cruisers done with that. We're going to still do the remote fielding the week after, so the beginning of June. We might not have the installs done on all the vehicles, but we can still do the fielding and then push the software down to the vehicles after they get installed throughout that week. So that's a good step in the process to get going. Today we participated in the career day for Elkins Middle School at the Phil Gaynor. Great experience. It was nice just to get out, get to talk to some of the kids and have it be on a positive basis, and it was fun. It was great to see the turnout from the city there as well. All the departments showed out today and looked really good. I was impressed by it. Last week we reinstated a former officer from Elkins Police Department, so next week Patrolman Dylan Kaufman will be starting back with the city, so glad to see him come back. That's going to fill one of our openings, so we have 2 left to get filled with our current testing list. That's still in the background phase right now, so hopefully we can get 2 off that list and be at full strength for the first time in years. So that would be great. And lastly, I just want to take a minute and talk about my guys and how good they are at what they do. I mean, I know how good they are. I see how good of a job they do on a daily basis. But I tell you, the days that they amaze me are the days where it's really bad. Last week, we had one of those days. We had a murder. Crime scene was outdoors, and shortly after we got on scene, got the suspect in custody and things secure, it comes a torrential downpour, all right, that threatens the integrity of that crime scene. And to see the guys do the things that they did, to make the decisions that they made without me always having to say something, from top to bottom, the decision making, the competence, the skill, and the ability, it's just there. I mean, it's just there. We have a fantastic group of police officers. That investigation, I couldn't ask for things to go the way they do, and the dedication for the guys. Like, a department our size, when we have incidents like that, that's not something that we can handle with what we have on shift. That takes nearly our entire department coming in. And it doesn't take me sitting on my phone calling all of them. It's the other way around. It's as soon as they find out, it's, Chief, what can we do? What do you need me for, and where do you need me? And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because the work that comes with a case like that, I don't have enough time in this meeting to sit here and explain it to you and how it changes. It changes everything for schedules for a long period. I mean, we have to send guys, we don't mail evidence on a murder case, we hand deliver it to the lab. So that's trips to Charleston. We have to have people attend autopsies within a day of that happening. So it changes everybody's schedule when we do that. And nobody complains. It doesn't bother anybody. They step up, they pick up shifts, they do what they have to do to help their fellow police officer do their job. So I just want to commend them and let you know how good of a job they do at that kind of thing. Secondly, the other departments in the city. Communications, I know I say it every time we have something like this, but it takes so much off of that on-scene commander to be able to call one person and put out what you need to put out instead of answer 10 phone calls from reporters and other people wanting to know what's going on. It makes my life 10 times easier. My fire chief over here. As soon as the rain starts pouring, again, I'm not calling people. The phone calls are coming to me. Chief Himes, hey, Chief, I know what you got going on. I see it's raining. I've got an easy up in the back of my truck. I can be there in 2 minutes. Do you need me? Absolutely, Chief, get it here. So it's that whole teamwork thing that we preach and preach and preach. You see it every day, but you really see it when you have a critical incident. So just very appreciative for my guys in the other departments of the city. But that's all I got, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Kessiker.
Good evening. I'd like to start out by saying that we had the street department and sanitation at the career day today as well, kind of trying not to repeat, but it was a great time. I think the city was very well represented. The one stretch of the road from the beginning to the end was all city representatives and city departments. So it speaks a lot about our employees. Our employees were very good with the kids, let them get on some of the vehicles, some of the equipment, and start them up and things of that nature. I think the kids really enjoyed it. we do have to up our game to draw people to us a little bit. The section beside me was roasting s'mores all day, so now I'm like craving a s'mores really bad. So next year we might have to do that as well. But all in all, it was a great experience. I was glad to be a part of it, and I was glad that operations was a part of it as well. Since the last meeting, the street department has put down 12 ton of asphalt in various locations throughout the city, patching some potholes, putting in curbs. So I think we're up to a little over 37 tons in the last month. So those guys are working really hard, trying to get everything ready for paving season, so when paving season gets here, we can hit the ground running. I want to send out a reminder that our Nissan Versa is here for anyone that's eligible to drive a city vehicle. Please stop up on the 3rd floor, get the keys, sign it out, and take it so you're not running your personal vehicle. That's what we got it for. It's a great car to drive, very economical, and it'll save you from running your own vehicle. HVAC Resolution 1758. You'll be voting on that this evening. You have a blue folder. It'll answer any questions you have about the HVAC resolution. It is the complete bid packet. We're going to do the base operation for it, which will be 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors. But it's everything you need in there, all the competitive bids, the winning bid, everything is in that packet for you for your review. We will be taking delivery, Resolution 1757, the budget revision. We will be taking delivery of our new street sweeper next week. We're excited about that. It'll be put into service immediately, so that's a good news, and that's just more ways that we're able to serve our citizens, make the town look better, and just put a good foot forward as city workers. And I think the guys are really excited to get it and get it running, so we're looking forward to that. On May 20th, I have a meeting with the contractor at the sanitation garage construction site. We will be, at that point, deciding when we're going to break ground and notifying the press, and we'll be able to break ground and start the project on that $1.5 million building. So we're excited about that as well. Other than that, I have nothing else to report. I will be available to answer any questions you may have regarding the bid on the HVAC system, if there are any. If you have any questions now, I'll be glad to address them.
Mike, I don't have a question, but I want to thank you and your staff for taking care of the Legion riders today. We had a group of bikers come through. They were thrilled. You took great care of them, so appreciate that.
And I forgot to put that in my notes, but Mary, you're 100% right. And my hat goes off to Brad and Lisa. They really did a heck of a job because we had so much going on today with the career fair and that happening. It's really great when you have employees that you can just say, hey, here's the mission, and you don't have to watch over them. They go do it, and they do it professionally, and you hear nothing but good things in return from the people that are involved in it. It makes you feel good to be a part of that team, so. But thank you for reminding me about that. Absolutely.
Yes,
Thanks.
Ms. Judy?
Good evening. In your packet, you had the reports for April. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? All funds are doing well at this point in time, and I do expect that to be the case at the end of the fiscal year as well. Also in your packet, I put a letter in from the HDL companies. This is a company that we have basically hired as of the fall of 2018 is when we started, and they are able to go find businesses that are doing business in Elkins that we're not aware of, works with us and the business in getting those business licenses, the past due B&Os. Since that inception, we have had over $405,000 come in from that company. Now, the way that agreement was set, the first 2 years of each company that they find, it's a 50-50 split. So they have received $202,000 roughly. So they continue to be a good outlet for us as they have everything they need to do to be able to find people doing business that we don't know about. And as you recall, in the previous meeting or two regarding our insurance quote for the upcoming year, I have spoken with a previous insurance agent, and he said that the insurance quotes that he is getting from other insurance companies are coming in about 10 to 12% higher than this past year. So I think we're really good that we came about $500 under what we're paying now. So just wanted to pass that along to you all. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Hey, Tracy, I had one question on the revenues. I know a couple look like they're over the projected collection. Is there anything kind of insight you want to give us on those ones that are significantly higher, like
Well,
the gas and oil severance
Like
tax?
gas and oil, for whatever reason, it usually came in around 25,000. So what the state sent us this year was 70,881. So that was definitely did not follow the historical pattern, which is good news. Anything else on that? The intergovernmental, that's because of federal and state grants that we have. That's why that is, we don't really anticipate what we're going to get, but that is the reason for that huge increase.
Is the Phil Gaynor increase, or is that more events there, or is that a grant for the facility there? Or?
No, that's rents that they have there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Himes.
Good evening. As everybody's alluded to, spent the day over to middle school. Had a good time with that. I'd really like to see, for our purposes, and I'm sure Chief Bennett can echo this as well, when you're trying to recruit for our line of work, you've got to hook them early. And I don't know if we did any of that today, but we did engage with several kids over there, and I think, to echo everybody's statements, I think it was a good time. Thanks to Melissa for all her go-between and coordinating that with the staff at the middle school. So as of today, 301 calls for the year. That's 22% higher than last year. Again, nothing jumping out that it's any one thing or any number of things. It just seems like we have been busier. You guys should have got an email, a save the date email. You should get a reminder this coming week. Next Friday, the 24th, will be Captain Ron Corcoran's last day with the city. He is retiring. He's put in 30 years at the fire department and 4.5 at sanitation prior to that. So we're having something that day at the firehouse. I hope everyone can attend. Ron is going to be missed to the point that I don't want to talk about it anymore. But he said I think he's going to stick around as a volunteer, and I really hope so. But the institutional knowledge and if you stack his shifts on top of one another, he's spent about 11 years in that building consecutive. So it's going to be it's our first retirement in 23 years. So that kind of longevity's something that you don't see a lot of. So please, 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 if you're available Friday between noon and 4, we'll be giving some gifts and give them some speeches if I can get through it. About 2:30. And new engine is everything we hoped it would be. It's been on 19 calls in 2 weeks. So I hope everybody's as happy with it as we are. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Mr. Stokes?
Thank you, Mayor. Ditto on Career Day. I won't repeat everything everyone else said. The angle I wanted to mention is it really seems like there's an opportunity to extend that contact and maybe branch out at the high school level. Each of the departments mentioned there were at least a few core groups of kids who did have some good questions and seemed engaged, and I think we could up that next year now that we kind of see how it works. But I think there's a good opportunity for some of our hands-on trade kind of departments to get in the classroom maybe and do some practical lessons and demonstrations, and it really seemed like everyone's enthusiastic about the possibility of doing that. So I think that's, you meet them, you interact again. I think it's that circling back that could help with that pipeline of people, young people in the area who might consider careers in public service of one kind or another. We just this week, possibly today, finished open enrollment, or yesterday. Gesturing to Melissa back there, she and Wendy put in a lot of hard work. I think this was really successful. I think a lot of employees got a lot of information, really felt listened to as far as questions, and I think a lot of people made some new choices or dialed in the best packages of benefits for themselves and their families. So I really thank them for their work on that. There's, I don't know if everyone remembers that there's the strategic plan that we're working on. I made some good progress on that in the last couple of days, and I think I'll have a new version of that for people to look at
I've heard of it.
within the month. And finally, something Councilor Bros-Figanera mentioned, I wanted to just remind everyone and also remind people watching at home, we do have an online agenda platform, and anyone who wants to can go on. You can pick different committees, council. You can subscribe so that when a new set of minutes or an agenda or a packet is published, you can be notified. If you want to go there right now, you can look at the full packet, the full 105-page packet that council is looking at tonight. Any member of the public can do that. You just go to our website, cityofelkinswv.com, and if you scroll down just a little bit on the homepage, you'll see a row of badges. Just click Agenda Center, and that'll take you to that page, and you can check out what's there. But it's a way to stay in the loop and have visibility into everything the council members and committee members are working on. That's all I've got, unless anyone has questions.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Roberts?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure there'll be some questions when we get to the new business, but I would just like to make one remark that really stood out to me on Tuesday, primary election day. You may have noticed, if you looked at any of the statewide information, there are some cities that elect their officials in the midst of primaries and then a general election. I think it was a wise decision for the council to keep your elections separate. Those city elections, if you look at the results, they get lost in the shuffle. It's sort of an afterthought. Oh, so-and-so's going to be the mayor, or so-and-so is doing this, because there's so many other things at issue. Keeping your elections separate on an odd year, which also probably helps, I think was a really smart decision, and it made it real clear to me on Tuesday when I looked at those pages and pages of results. So just wanted to say, good choice in leaving it separate like that. And like I said, when we get to the new business, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Sir.
Point of privilege, if I may.
Absolutely.
I was at the middle school this morning, and you all were amazing. Everybody from the city who was there, I watched everybody interacting with the kids, and the kids were engaged. And there were a couple troublesome adults, and Wendy's got them sucked up into the vacuum truck.
Melissa.
She's going to let them out after dark. But it was just, our presence felt so really, really good, and I want to thank everybody who was there for that. I mean, and your staff, your people who were there, who aren't here tonight, thank them, please. Really did the city proud, all of you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving down to the approval of the vendor and invoice payments. I'll entertain a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, down to new business. Ordinance 328, an ordinance of the City of Elkins, West Virginia, to vacate, abandon, and close a portion of the certain public right-of-way known as the Coke Alley of the Valley Improvement Company, South Elkins, addition between 10th Street and 11th Street. This is the final reading. I will entertain a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any questions or comments?
I've got a couple questions, if I may. This is for Mike, I think the operations manager, probably be a question for him. Since we're abandoning a portion of a through alleyway, is there any concerns about that affecting garbage service, snow plowing service, or any other service those residents would?
No, we've
get over there?
coordinated with the representatives from the Coca-Cola company, and they've worked with us. They have assured us that we'll have access to the gates for sanitation and for snow plowing in the wintertime. So they were very attentive when I had talked to them about our concerns for providing that service, and they assured me that there would be no interruption to that. And with the plans that they put forward, I feel confident that there'll be no issues there whatsoever.
Good. Then my next question is more of a legal question. When we abandon an alleyway like this, are we abandoning our interest or ownership of real property that we own, or are we abandoning our right to have the public go across property that somebody else owns?
So what happens if this ordinance is passed this evening on the final reading? What the city does is does a quitclaim deed, which, as you know, Rob, is whatever interest the city's got in it is getting conveyed to, in this case, one property owner. Sometimes it's more than one, depending on what the situation is. So that is what we're doing, and we're reserving the right for any utilities that are in that area, either now or that we would need to add at some point in time, access to those. So it's the typical, we're not making a general or a special warranty deed. We're just saying whatever interest we have in it, it is now yours. And that's the procedure. I'm not sure what year exactly we adopted the procedure in order to do that. But what was happening in the past is there was an abandonment or a closure, but there was no explanation as to what happened to that property. It was just sort of, there was an ordinance, but that was it. So now there's a procedure in place, and all of those steps in the procedure have been met, short of council approving this on the second reading. And if that's the case, then I already have a deed prepared that I have shared with Coca-Cola with regard to the city quit claiming its interest in that property. And with all of that done, I will have the mayor sign that. Of course, it'll be recorded just as any other conveyance would be.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments?
I think along those same lines, this is a curiosity that just came up. And Mike, you made it clear too that the relationship was worked out so that everything we needed to provide would have access to. But is that formalized or in writing, or does that need to be?
Well, the conveyance and the procedure that we go into, and if you'll look at the ordinance, it talks about the fact that both of our public safety officers and, of course, also Mr. Kessiger have been involved intimately. I don't know how many times they've met over there, 2, 3, I'm not sure, several, along with the representatives from the owner of the property to make sure that when the Municipal Properties Committee considered it, they had all of that information so that they could make a recommendation to council, which is what they've done, which has been formalized in the ordinance that we have.
Okay, so 70 or 80 years from now, if a different property owner has it, we would still maintain that same access for snow plowing or for trash trucks, or?
Well, that portion of the alley,
Yeah.
that one section, as you can see, if you look at the ordinance, there's a plat attached to it from Mr. Mallow. It shows you exactly what it is. That is now for here on in. It's not Coca-Cola. I'm sorry, I forget what the name of the company that's going to get conveyed to that actually owns all their real estate. But they will have that rights to that property as any other grantee in a quit claim deed would have. It continues that way. Now, what they would choose to do with it in the future, that would be up to them as the owner of whatever interest the city has that they're quit claiming to them. So it will continue. It's just like any transfer of any other rights that the city would have to it. So I don't know what their future plans would be, but it'll be up to them once the deed is signed and recorded.
Okay.
And I like
But if you look at the minutes from municipal properties and look at the whereas statements in this, it talks about the fact that we've had people look at this. This wasn't done without real consideration. Yeah. Because that is the concern about public safety, about the adjacent property owners. And I will say in this case, Coca-Cola on their own went to every other property owner in that vicinity that might be affected with it and discussed this with them ahead of time. That also was relayed to both Chief Bennett and Chief Himes and to Mr. Kessinger. So everyone's pretty much on board about what the plan is here for it.
Okay, I was just trying to make sure the city's interests were protected long term, but you would say that.
Well, once the quitclaim deed's signed, that's it.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have, the city then has no interest in it.
Okay.
Because you're saying in that quitclaim deed, whatever interest the city has as of that date, it is now getting conveyed to, in this case, a subsidiary of Coca-Cola.
Okay.
And I will say, we have two representatives from Coca-Cola here tonight, and prior to this meeting, they expressed the appreciation of the professionalism from the staff within the city and how easy they were to work with. So I appreciate the feedback there. Thank you, guys.
Well, and one thing to remember, much of their reasoning, Coca-Cola's reasoning, is for the safety of their employees. If you've ever been past that area, it's a busy street. We all know 11th Street is, and they've got a lot of activity between the building and that alley and then where their trucks are parked, and they're back and forth with forklifts and equipment, and I think that was probably the driving force for them to make it a more safe environment for their staff.
Any other questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Ordinance 329, an ordinance of the Common Council of Elkins, West Virginia, amending sections of the City Code, Chapter 152, zoning regarding use definitions. This is also the final reading. I will entertain a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. I'm going to point out when Sutton covered the last meeting, we were 2 topics. Now we have 14, so thanks, Sutton. I appreciate that. Ordinance 330, an ordinance of the Common Council of Elkins, West Virginia, assigning zoning districts to an unzoned parcel of North 12th Street. This is first of 2 readings. I will entertain a motion to accept, please. We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Ordinance 331, an ordinance of the Common Council of Elkins, West Virginia, amending sections of the City Code, Chapter 152, zoning regarding use definitions, use of industrial district, and height of accessory buildings. This is also the first of 2 readings. I will entertain a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any questions or comments?
I have several, unfortunately. Need more definition on this, because the way I read it, if you put in a garage and then you put a room over top of the garage, you cannot do it because it would exceed the 75%. If you also would have a building that you got an office in and a warehouse behind you, you couldn't do it.
Couldn't do what, I'm sorry. So what it's changing is, it used to say that an accessory building could only be 18 feet tall.
Correct.
That's what it used to say. So now there was a request to make that consideration to increase the 18 feet to a larger number. And if you look at what it says about accessory buildings, it can't be more than 20 feet. But it also talks about if it's something other than the 1 story. Let me pull it up so I don't misread. 25 feet. 25, can't exceed 25 feet. It used to be 18 feet, but now it's much higher. And it also, anything that's greater than 1 story, if the accessory building is more than 1 story, it can't exceed 75% of the height of the principal building or structure. And in all instances, it can't be more than 25 feet total. So it's increasing what it used to say about the height of of an accessory building.
And that's where I still have the problem. If you look at a garage, it's going to be 8 feet, maybe 10 feet tall. If I decide to put an apartment above the garage and I have a normal size house, it's already exceeded the 75%.
Well, it can't be more than 25, and it might, you have to look at either the.
Well, it's going to be more than 25 on the average.
So you want it more than 25 feet tall?
Well, if it's there, I mean, there's several things in there, like if it, okay, the exception is agriculture buildings and in structure. It's all one sentence. You come down to it, except the very last one says, except that all cases, the height of the access building or in structure shall not exceed 25 feet. And that's where I was saying, if you had in industrial park, you had a facility in the front where you did your business.
This doesn't apply to agricultural buildings or structures or those located in the industrial district.
Right, but the very last sentence says it's except, which overrules the rest of it, in my opinion.
I don't believe that's what it says.
Okay, then we'll let that part
I
go.
think the exception, if you look at the beginning and that phrase after the comma on the first line, it accepts out of it agricultural buildings and structures and those that are located in the industrial district. So that's most likely where you're going to have your warehouse, would be my belief. So these heights, the maximum 25 feet and the 75% would not apply to agricultural buildings or buildings in the industrial district. That's my interpretation of what's written there.
I could see how it could be clarified. I mean, I see both cases here. The clear intent of the Planning Commission, this is built on the language that appears there now. And because it's a simpler sentence, it makes very clear that you're talking about a restriction here that doesn't apply to agricultural buildings and industrial buildings. To really make sure that that's clear here, we could always just, and I think it would be a minor change as far as readings, but you could just take that, except agricultural buildings and structures and those located in the industrial district. We could take that out and just put that as a second sentence that says this provision does not apply
You could.
to buildings
Okay,
and
that's
agricultural buildings. But that's the intention for sure.
Okay.
It wasn't supposed to apply to those.
I mean, when you look at the phrase, that is normally, looking at a statute, that is how you would read it. When you put that except clause in there, the statutory construction means whatever else you've said in there this is the exception, the agricultural and buildings and structures in the industrial district. That is the point of it. And that was in there previously.
Okay. My
But-
concern is I don't want to stop development. And I felt that, if I wanted to put an apartment over top of a facility.
But you're not going to put an apartment in the industrial district.
No, but I mean.
You might
just-
do it in one of the
Right,
residential
in
districts.
one of the other places that is zoned for that, then you couldn't do it.
If I can offer a little commentary from the Planning Commission. So what we have, the language here today is a lot more permissive than what was there before. So before it was a flat out 18-foot height restriction for accessory buildings. And so a resident came before the Planning Commission to kind of articulate they were building essentially a garage with an apartment or a little structure above it that essentially was 20 feet. And so they couldn't do that. So to the spirit of what you're saying, Councilor Henchman, this would allow that on those structures. But the kind of the hitch in here that did take some time to smooth out is to figure out, like, I think obviously, especially those houses in South Elkins that are single stories, I don't think folks want, their neighbor to build a garage that's going to loom over. So this structure, I think, honors the integrity of those particular sections of town by limiting it to 75% of the height of the principal structure, but also by putting that 25-foot height limit also, again, ensures some reasonableness to the policy. And this is certainly more permissive than we were before.
And so basically, if you had a one-story house, you could have a one-story garage.
This is for multi-story.
If you had a two-story house, you'd be able to build an apartment on top, creating a structure that's no more than 75% of the main building. Let's say it's a 40-foot tall, 2-story house. 75% of that, of course, would be 30 feet. You'd have to bump down to this overall 25-foot restriction. But that would enable you to have an 8 to 10-foot garage and another 15 feet on top of that would be suitable for a living space of some kind. That's how I understand the plan. I could read the new paragraph, or Jerry, should we bring this back?
Well,
Why don't I read it and we see how different it feels, but.
If you want to change it, my suggestion would be just don't do anything with this ordinance this evening. Make the change, we'll bring it back to the next council meeting, you can approve it. If that is what Mr. Hinchman's concern is, I am always hesitant to make a change, and the question becomes, is it substantive or not? And that's, to me, subjective. So if there's no urgency, and in your concern, Councilor Hinchman, is this doesn't explain the situation, and we just take that exception out and put a separate sentence in there somewhere that says it doesn't apply to agricultural buildings and structures in industrial district, we can certainly do that. But I would be much more comfortable just changing it and bringing it back to council for the first reading at the next meeting. If that's the consensus that you all would like to do that.
I'm good with that.
That sounds fine. I just had a clarification question as well. So this is across all the different districts, right?
Except
industrial, right?
That's what the exceptions
so
in there for.
From single family to all the way.
All the different residential districts, yes. Yes.
Right.
I mean, this came from this is a request from someone in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
In a residential district. That's
Right.
where it came from. And that's why there's an exception for agricultural or buildings in the industrial district.
Jerry, what all does accessory, what would that include?
Well, there's a definition in the
Is there-
entire zoning. I could pull it up if you'd like me to.
Well, that's what I was just, we mentioned garages, but like, I was just kind of wondering, like, it's a build or
If you'll give
what?
me a minute, I can pull it up.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was,
If you look, I forget how many definitions there are, many. In the code, the zoning code itself, there is a definition for accessory buildings. If you want to give me a second, I'll find it and I can read it to you. I just don't have it in front of me.
I have it.
Do you have it right there? Okay. Here I have it now too. Go ahead, if you want to read it, Sutton.
Accessory structure or accessory building means a structure or building on the same lot with or on an adjacent lot to, and of a nature customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use or structure, including but not limited to swimming pools, piers and other water-related structures, parking, fences, gazebos, satellite dishes, dog houses and dog-related structures, non-commercial greenhouses, sheds, and private garages.
so would that, like with the swimming pool and these other things, would that be applicable to these provisions?
Well, I'm not sure.
I know what I'm confused too, but like that, well, if that all includes swimming pools, it includes, buildings, it includes fences, I mean.
Well, it does say, but not limited to. These are examples in the definition of accessory.
Well, and I also want to point out there's two parts of this ordinance. Part of it is the zoning regarding the use definitions.
Right.
So if we delay this, we're going to end up delaying that piece of it as well.
I mean, I will say the English teacher in me and the person, and since I moved on it, I do think that's like, it's a non-essential clause in the sentence. Like, I think the reading as is makes sense.
Well, there's a difference between English construction and legal construction of statutes.
But,
I can just tell you, I spent lots of times in law school talking
trust you,
about
Jerry.
statutory
That's it, yeah.
interpretations. And I spent a lot of time in college writing English papers, but it is different. And it is, I believe it's clear as to what it means. Now, if
I
people
agree with
aren't
you.
comfortable with it and you want to do that, that is certainly this council's prerogative. But the mayor's right. There are two different things being considered here. Actually, three things. A change in the definition that will allow something that is not allowed currently. It's modifying a definition, and it's also allowing it now in an industrial district which it was not permitted in previously. That's totally separate from the accessory building. These changes came to the Planning Commission, as you know, those that are on the commission, came from two different people for two different instances, for two totally different situations, so.
Can we pass
It's your
the
pleasure.
others?
No, we're not going
Jerry,
to divide it up. That's even worse, I think, than just making a change, but
That you don't think that
no.
someone could amend the motion to strike the section on accessory buildings and pass the rest of the ordinance?
Frankly, I believe, this is my comfort level, if you're going to change what you have in front of you tonight, I think you just need to bring it back all together. That is my suggestion. If you're uncomfortable with the section, concerning accessory buildings and what that means and what it applies to, we certainly can fix that. But, it says substantive changes, and I think before you start doing it at all, I mean, frankly, you're tinkering with your zoning ordinance to begin with. Let's be clear about that, okay? You didn't pass, that was not even 2 years ago it got passed. So here we are, we're changing something. And for those that were on the Planning Commission during the time that was considered, it was years, and probably many meetings on accessory buildings is my recollection. So all I'm saying is I would rather be the most precise we can be, unless there's, and maybe Sutton or the mayor knows something more urgent than I understand about it, that it can't wait till your first June meeting to be taken up.
Okay, Jerry, are you comfortable with the way that it's written?
I am.
I've got my answers completed now, so I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I mean, sometimes the simple reading of something kind of needs to be explained a little bit, but I think as far as a statute, which this actually is, it's a statute you as a legislative body pass, I think it is clear what is being done. Could you change it? Absolutely, you could change it. You could say the way and make it a totally separate sentence. You could do that if you choose to.
It sounds like the concern of building an apartment on top of a garage, shouldn't be a concern because an apartment isn't an accessory building. And it seems like it'd be more of a, based on that definition, it's more of a dwelling.
This is an accessory building we're talking about here, that the person that came to make this request went to your zoning officer to get a permit for this.
Was it an apartment on top of a
Yeah,
garage?
with the design and everything they were
I
going
think
to do.
you could think of it more as just a second story that's, it's obviously not a garage because it's on the second story, but they were envisioning using it as like an extension of their house, a space they could use. I think they described letting their child have a playroom or something like that. And then, of course, it would be available if like they had a family member come and stay. It would be available to them there. But it wasn't like they were, building an apartment to rent out or something like that. It wasn't quite that type of plan.
And I will say the Planning Commission had an extensive conversation regarding both of these, and I feel like this is a very, very reasonable compromise. Instead of an arbitrary number of 18 feet, it's a compromise that allows a little more flexibility, is what we were comfortable with. 18 feet not to exceed 25, or 75, sorry, 75% not to exceed 25.
And this is an accessory building. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, there's nothing else that you could consider this. And there's also a limitation about that accessory building and the principal building, how much of the lot it can take up. Just a point, once you start changing anything, it has collateral issues that come up with it. So that is sort of how this kind of works. But the Planning Commission considered it. I was unable to stay for the entire meeting. I had to leave because I had a prior commitment. But I know from what Sutton told me afterwards and what the mayor told me afterwards, what was decided and what Sutton communicated to me, this is what the Planning Commission is recommending. Now, you can choose not to take their recommendation. You can do whichever you please. It's totally up to you. All they can do is recommend based on what things have come to them, and it's ultimately council's decision to amend or change your zoning code.
And we do have a motion on the floor, like I said, so, I mean, we can put it to a vote, and if you're not comfortable with it, you can vote against it, and we can bring it back, or we can push it through the way it is right now. So, Andrew, thank you for the motion. Any other questions or comments on this?
And then maybe to speak to the second half of this, since we haven't paid a little attention to that. So essentially in the industrial park zone, there are a lot of uses that are already permitted in the zoning ordinance that I think in our head don't necessarily jive with what we consider to be industrial. And so what we're adding a term is for clinic, and so you guys can see the definition there. And that will allow some further business development that looks similar, like you've got like Greenbrier Audiology there. There are some other good uses of that space that adding this definition is not dissimilar to other uses that we already permit by right in the industrial zone.
So if you look at the definition of clinic, the only thing that's been added to that is the phrase after or in that very last line. That was not originally in the definition for clinic in your zoning code. And this comes from a special request for a business that does rehabilitation services, and they want to locate in the industrial district where there's an existing building that they intend to take over.
And we would like to keep them in the city if possible.
They need more space, and this will apparently work for them, is my understanding. So, when you look at industrial districts, if someone wants to locate there, it's a lot different than someone looking at trying to locate something in a residential, of any type of residential district, because it's industrial or pretty wide open as far as what can be there. And this is a choice of a business, an existing business that's looking at doing this. So we tweaked the definition of clinic, that last phrase after or, and now, as you can see in by right, it can be located in an industrial district.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll just, one short comment. I think as we're considering these things, it's interesting to me how we're dealing with individual requests by changing the zoning ordinance, rather than folks going through the whole Board of Zoning Appeals and that sort of thing. So I just want to ensure that I have all the trust in the world in our planning commission, that these things are well thought out for the good of everyone. We've said twice, we had an individual come to us and make this request, that there has to be an awareness that this is the best for the entire city, rather than looking like, oh, we had an individual come and we're changing the ordinance for the individual, rather than going through the whole process of the Board of Zoning Appeals. It was on the merit of the request. It was seen to be the best for the entire city.
So there's...
We haven't approved, or you haven't approved anything that would be eligible to go through. None of these
Zoning.
changes could be achieved by going through the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
You can't get a variance to make your building slightly larger or things like that. I get what you're saying about these seem to be in response to individual requests. I think another way to think of them is they're in response to the first set of people who are coming along and trying to apply aspects of this pretty new, very comprehensive zoning code. And I think a ton of work went into it, but I think everyone who was involved with that, including yourself, had to know there was some degree of best estimate of what was going to work, and that runs up against, when someone comes in with actual architect's plans and an architect is saying, it's kind of an awkward fit at that height. It's high enough to make you think you can do a second story, but really because of this aspect of standard construction or something, you're basically, a lot of people will encounter something that will hamper what they're trying to do. So I'm also in advising the Planning Commission, really trying to be sensitive to, there's going to be requests like that. We're going to reach a point, I can't say exactly when, but where I think things will have gotten dialed in a lot better about the zoning ordinance, to an extent where the city will have run into enough different construction scenarios and tweaked things as it seems necessary, and maybe not always tweaked it. And there will come a point when I think everyone involved will feel a lot more comfortable saying, you know, sorry about your luck, this restriction does make sense, it really does seem to be the best applicable way to, you know, achieve the goals of the ordinance. And at that point, I think it would be appropriate to then adopt a much more formal, skin in the game type of application to change the zoning ordinance. In other cities, Martinsburg, I've been looking at a lot, they're very formalized, obviously very built out, huge development issues there. But at a certain point, it may be, if you want to change the zoning ordinance, there'll be a substantial application fee, and you'll have to come forward with very specific language that you proposed, and you might not get what you want. But I think right now we're in kind of this learning phase and trying to figure out what, if there are some things around the edges that can get dialed in a little better. So
So I would agree with that. I actually kind of feel like our zoning plan is kind of a living document right now, that as we evolve and grow as a community, we're going to have to make modifications. And the only way we're aware of some of the issues that we may be facing is when people make these kind of requests. So it's not that we're doing it to meet somebody's needs. That's how we're made aware that this doesn't necessarily fit every agenda. But of course, you don't have the crystal ball to know what to expect.
Right.
So we have to do the best we can, as you well know, in the Planning Commission, and try to serve the community as a whole.
Right.
And that's what we feel like we're trying to do with both of these, or all three of these, actually, so.
So I'll tell you, I gave a memo to the members of the Planning Commission just to remind them of the purposes of zoning that are in the actual section of the city code that talks about it, and also pointing out sometimes it's different. For instance, there were some definitions that weren't anticipated. Adding those definitions absolutely makes sense, because you don't want to discourage things like a conference center or co-working space or museums, that sort of thing. Those kind of things, and you can't totally anticipate every type of structure or building someone would want. So that I look at a little differently than a request that comes. And as Sutton pointed out, BZAs can't do any of this. There's nowhere they can go. What they have to do is start out with your zoning officer, who is Jesse, and go from there. But I do believe that if this is going to continue to be, and I intend to take this up at the next Planning Commission meeting, I will tell them ahead of time, that I think we need to think about something more formal than sort of the way it's been handled now, when we're making, I believe, substantive changes to heights, locations, whether a sign can be a certain size or not. Everyone has somebody they know that they want something changed. I mean, it's just how it is. But the Planning Commission does not have to change anything. I mean, it's always up to them whether they're going to make the recommendation or not. It has to come through them, their recommendation, and then their recommendation comes here. But I believe what Sutton's talking about with a more formal process does make some sense, sort of like what you finally put in place about vacating and closing rights-of-way. There wasn't anything in place before. Now you have a policy, a procedure. They need a survey. They need to do certain things. They need to make a deposit. So I don't think that would be a bad idea.
Any other comments? Once again, we do have a motion on the floor. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Good discussion. Ordinance 332, annexing a parcel of Red Bud Lane into the city of Elkins. This is the first of two readings. I will entertain a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
Hey, Mayor Marco, if I can recuse myself from this since I'm a member of Woodlands Development Group's Board of Directors.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a motion. Any questions or comments?
I was just curious as to the primary use of that piece of property.
They have built apartments. Townhouses, I think is maybe the better way to describe it, not an apartment. But yeah, they're already built there. And I think just in the process, because you know the city's annexed Highland Meadows and annexed other property down that they own on Wilson Lane. I think this is one that they did the work and then they thought, oh, we need to get this in the city. So that's what it's about. And since they're the only owner of the property, they've met all the requirements. You just have to pass the ordinance 2 times and then we'll take it to the county commission for an administrative order.
Where is Red Bud Lane? I was trying to find it.
It's on Wilson, go down Wilson Lane. And do you know where Highland Meadows is? Well, the Red Bud Lane is where the Red Bud Apartments are, is what they call it. So it is one of the side streets that goes off of Wilson Lane, where they built the one-story, I don't know if they call them townhouse. They call them Red Bud Apartments, but that's
Okay.
where it is, yeah.
I couldn't find it, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Ordinance 333, annexing 2 parcels near the Elkins Water Plant into the city of Elkins. This is the first of 2 readings as well. I will entertain a motion to accept, please. We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1752, amending the personnel policy to eliminate restrictions on using benefits during your first 90 days of employment. I will entertain a motion to accept, please. We have a motion. Any questions or comments?
I think this makes a lot of sense.
It does. Thank you. It helps with us. Any other comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1753, adopting an updated Elkins Fire Department organizational chart and staffing policy. I will entertain a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1754, adopting an updated policy for the use of the downtown sound system. I will entertain a motion. Before I even got it out. We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1755, lets bids for relocation of the sewer line under the former city street garage near 11th Street. I will entertain a motion to accept, please. We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1756, reappoint R. Woolwine to the Airport Authority. I will entertain a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
Pick one. We have a motion. Any questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1757, fiscal year 2024, general fund budget revision 10. I will entertain a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
We have a motion. Any questions or comments?
I just had a quick question. What's the lifespan of a street sweeper?
Probably about 10 years. And the one we have is repaired daily.
It's probably, 15 years old?
Yeah, we're going to hang on to it for a while. But then we have some plans moving forward with it. But for the current, time frame, we'll hang on to it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Resolution 1758, accepting the base bid of $1.255 million for the City Hall HVAC system from the Commercial Plumbing and Heating. I will entertain a motion to accept, please. We have a motion. Any questions or comments?
Mike, could you give us a little bit of a kind of a sketch of the outline of that work?
Sure. Basically, what you're voting on to approve is the base bid. The base bid would be to do the HVAC system in the first floor, second floor, and third floor. We won't work in the basement. We won't work in the jury chambers or the penthouse up top. However, by doing the first, second, and third floors, what you will do is in future years, if you want to proceed with the project, a lot of the internal components are already there, so it would speed up the process of doing the work on the other areas in the future. Quite important to understand what we're doing is putting an investment into the building where the mayor and I have spoken about it, and I've spoken about it with several other people as well. This winter, we are one busted pipe away from not being able to operate City Hall. And it's not so much the boilers that we're worried about. The bulk of this work is going to be interior work with running new pipes, new duct work, things of that nature. And obviously then we'll be using more energy efficient equipment as well. But what the concern is from my maintenance crew is if we lose piping internally, it could be down substantially for a long period of time, and then you have freezing taking place. So this is basically first, second, third floor, bare bones work to have a modern HVAC system and prevent the, you know, and the reality of a harsh winter, prevent something from taking place that could shut us down for a while.
And then so some of the other items listed on this bid, like the boiler demolition, and those would be secondary projects in the future?
Those are secondary projects in the future, yes. The boiler demolition, the asbestos with the boiler demolition, things of that nature, that's all secondary projects that could be done further down the road if need. Highly recommended, but could be done further down the road.
And then long-term, we'll probably see a lot of cost savings for heating and cooling costs with this system?
Yeah, absolutely will, absolutely will. You know, it'll just, we're putting an investment into our workforce here and to the people that come in and out and do business as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So on the bid from Van Nostrand, when he said that following low bid from, and it has city plumbing and heating, it's from commercial plumbing and heating? Or, you know, on the first one?
Yes, it's commercial plumbing and city plumbing and heating. It's part of commercial out of Morgantown is who
Okay,
it is. Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments?
When would you anticipate the work starting if the bid's accepted?
Probably in the very near future. When they submitted the bid, they actually said they could start on April 15th. So they're waiting on us is basically where we're at. And to answer the next question is 300 days to completion once they start.
And there's financing that has to be
Yes, there will be some
obtained.
financing.
That's still in the
though,
works.
Yes. And John Stump reached out today with some questions that I've already addressed one of the answers. So he seemed to think we can move pretty quickly at getting all the paperwork done that needs done so we can give them the go-ahead to start the project.
Any other questions? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Reschedule of the meetings for June 20th due to West Virginia Day holiday and reschedule July 4th meeting due to Independence Day holiday. Sutton has made a recommendation that we cancel both meetings, the June 20th and 24th, and that we hold a special meeting on June 27th and return to our regularly scheduled meetings on July 18th. So is that a motion then? We have a motion. Any other questions or comments? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Down to mayor's comments. First, I want to start by thanking Sutton for covering the last council meeting for me. Like I said, you had 2 items on your agenda. I had a few more than that tonight. I was actually at the West Virginia Municipal League Board of Directors meeting, and I'm happy to say that we were able to hire a new executive director. It's Susan Economo. Travis Blosser has taken the city manager position in Fairmont, so he moved on, but we wish him well. He got sworn in last night, but he's close by, so he's there if we need help as well. Fantastic meeting. Like I said, we're glad we got that accomplished. In case you haven't heard, we attended the Elkins Middle School Career Fair today, because that hasn't been mentioned at all. I first want to thank the staff from the middle school for inviting us and reaching out and introducing themselves and putting that introduction out there. But I want to give a special thanks to Melissa Washington, because she spearheaded the coordination, and to the city staff that was out there today and all the workers. I mean, you did a tremendous job. You represented us in a fantastic manner, and, you know, hats off to you. Thank you so much for that. Greatly appreciate that. Also, a reminder that our sister city of Buchanan is having the Strawberry Festival this week, so if you get a chance, go check it out. I'm hoping the weather holds out for them, but it's not looking promising tomorrow or Saturday, so of course that's when the parades are. So, but if you get a chance, try to support our sister city. And I don't like to go negative with my mayor's comments, but I'm probably going to have to a little bit tonight on this one, because this is one that's been eating at me for a while. I know when you run for office, you put a target on your back. I get that. And I know that I'm never making everybody happy, and I'm comfortable with that, because we know at the end of the day, we're doing what's best for our community. And you also know that if you want to reach me, you can contact my office to set up a meeting and schedule something with my secretary. I'm the mayor that doesn't do much on social media. But when you start cyber stalking my family members to try to get in touch with me, you have crossed a line that is, in my mind, completely unacceptable. So, Mr. William Sourwine, if you're watching again tonight, I would respectfully ask that you stop stalking or cyber stalking my family members. Like I said, you've crossed the line with that one. And also, if you really want a splash pad in the Glendale Park, you need to come to a Elkins Parks and Rec meeting. But since you live in Florida, I'm guessing that won't happen. Like I said, right now, in my mind, you're being a pest and a nuisance, and it's not appreciated. So with that, meeting adjourned.